Hi everyone, Scott Woodward to talk to you about the Canterbury Bulldogs, who were last year's grand finalists, and talk about their prospects in 2013 and what impact I think their big buy will have. Is Tony Williams, who's come from Manly. Now, there's some good things and there's some bad things that are happening for the Bulldogs. Firstly, let's talk about the injury problems that they have got in the off-season. And we're talking about round one here. I'm going to talk about the team that I think will turn out in round one and how I think they'll go during the season. And the fact that I was just stunned that a team can get into a grand final like they did and have such a competitive side all year without a genuine organiser in their side. It was just quite an amazing effort, and just a massive tribute to the coach, to the forwards, and to Benny Barber. Just a fantastic effort that they did it. It's not normally how teams do it, but they did it and they got in the grand final. Sadly, because they didn't have that organiser, and the Storm did have an organiser, and that was the difference. And they weren't able to win the big one because they didn't have anyone to run the team when it really counted. And that was the edge that the Storm had. So look, we're going to talk about who I think will be starting, and I think some of this will surprise you. But before I do that, make sure that you click on the link to get your free download, your free NRL ebook download and AFL download. Some must-do reading in there. Now, the starting side for round one for Canterbury Bulldogs, no question, Ben Barber finished last year as the player of the year, and he certainly started this year. If we're going to go off the Indigenous form, he was just an absolute world-beating, sensational player. I don't think I've seen anybody so uncanny at knowing where they have to be to get the ball. And one thing's for sure, if the Queensland selectors don't put him on the bench this year, they all should be sacked. And let me just say, Laurie Daly will be hoping that he's not on the bench. So he is an absolute must be on the bench for the Maroons this year, and what an impact that will be. So Benny Barber, the fullback, and let me say, if something happens to him, I think they're in awful trouble. If you look at all their games last year, he was responsible for almost all of their wins. They won a lot of close games, and it was because he did freakish things. They just haven't got a ready-made replacement for him if something does happen to him. You know, you're talking about somebody like a Christian Anu or somebody like that to come on, or a Steve Turner or a Mitch Brown or somebody like that. So yeah, it's a fair big drop back, as you can see what I'm talking about. The two centres I think will be Sam Perrott and Steve Turner. I think they're two of the slowest wingers in the NRL. And look, they're coach's favourites and they don't really excite me, but I think they'll be the starting wingers. Other contenders for those positions will be Mitch Brown, Drury Loaf, Tim Laffey, and also a young kid, Silla, will be in contender for those positions. But I think the coach will start with his favourites, Sam Perrott and Steve Turner. I have no reason why he wouldn't do that. Christian Anu, you think would be one of the centres, and Josh Morris will be the other centre. Not much will change there from the standard selections from last year, although clearly Steve Turner was injured and didn't play in the grand final. Now, one of the big success stories from last year was Josh Reynolds, and he was just absolutely dynamic in what he did. Now, the fact of the matter is, he's an out-and-out hooker. And yet he just did such a wonderful job at second receiver, and he played as second receiver because the coach didn't have anyone else, and he was the best qualified person for that job. The downside for Josh is he's not an organiser and he's a terrible defender, which leaves him exposed when he's out there on the right hand side, particularly alongside of players like Christian Anu and Sam Perrott, who are also not that strong in defence. Needless to say, is Benny Barber. So it is a bit of a concern for the Bulldogs. Now, I'm saying that, and this is a team that won 12 consecutive games last year and made the grand final, but that is a problem that they've got that they need to address. Be interesting to see what he does do. Now, what the big thing is, who is he going to be? He's halfback. He had Chris Keating at halfback with Josh Reynolds for most of the year last year, and I got him to the grand final. So it's pretty hard to say that won't be their starting combination. But there's no question that Trent Hodgkinson has got better organisational skills than Chris Keating. He's a better organiser and a better tactical kicker. My feeling is that if he's fit, that he will be the starting halfback, and he'll be the long-term halfback for the Bulldogs during the year. but from what I've been told, that's a big if. I understand he's close to be able to trial, and he's supposed to be trialling the weekend that I'm doing this commentary. So whether or not he can get through it and he can be okay, my mail is that he's a day-to-day proposition, and they never know when they're going to have him right. It's not what you want to really be hearing, but fit and well, Trent Hodgkinson would be my first pick halfback, and I think he would give Canterbury a dimension that they haven't had in the last 12 months, which is very exciting given that they went so well last year. Josh Reynolds, I don't think they've got any choice but to play him at 6 again, even though he's not a 6. Like for me, I thought Michael Ennis had a poor year last year. He's very slow, he's very predictable, and he still makes a lot of errors, and he can still miss a lot of tackles. And yes, he's a good leader and he's a good talker, and like all that's important. But I think Josh Reynolds is a far better 9 than him. Josh Reynolds starting out of number 9 and having a high work rate and putting the energy into the forwards, I think would be just wonderful for the team if he could play in that position. I can't see it happening in 2013, but he would certainly be my 9. Having said that, you'd have to find a 6, which may very well be Chris Keeney if Hodgkinson comes back okay. So it's going to be interesting to see what the coach does there if he has a fit Hodgkinson, because it does give him the opportunity to play one of the other guys at 6, and then it puts a bit of pressure on Michael Ennis to maintain form. Otherwise, Josh Reynolds could just jump straight in there at 9. But you know, maybe the coach thinks Reynolds is a 6 and not a 9. I certainly think he's a 9. I'd love to see him play there one day. From the forwards' point of view, the Bulldogs got to the minor premiers last year, and they got to the grand final based on their wonderful forward pack. It's just a brilliant attacking forward pack, massive big forwards who put in good meters and have all got skills. They can all offload the ball, and this allowed guys like Benny Barber to come through and score a lot of points, and it just won them game after game after game. And opposition coaches didn't quite know how to defend it. And it just shows that you actually can win without an organiser if your forwards can play like that. Now here's the big problem for the Bulldogs. Their 3 best forwards I don't think will be playing in round 1, and that presents a big problem, and they're lucky that their second game in round 2 is against Parramatta without Rennie Matua. So they may very well scrape through that game, but they've got some big problems in the first few rounds of the game. Now let's just talk about some of their injuries. Firstly, they're going to lose James Graham. He's out for 12 weeks for chewing Billy Slater's ear, but because of trials, etc., it'll effectively be probably 10 weeks, but it's a big chunk of the year that they're going to lose James Graham, who is their best forward, and his work rate when he comes on, he's the guy that maintains that momentum, and then he stays on for the rest of the game. A massive out. I can't emphasise how big an out that is. Their big man, their big starting go forward, who was the prop forward of the year, Sam Cassiano, is injured, and I don't expect him to be back for round 1. I'm not quite sure how long he'll be out for, but I'm tipping it'll be 2 or 3 weeks at least, and that's another big out. The other big out is Frank Pritchard. He's been injured. They're trying to get him back for round 1. I don't know if he'll be back. Now, you take the 3 best forwards out of any rugby league team, and they're going to be struggling to win. I don't care what team you've got, and I don't care how good your spine is. You need your big go forward guys. Sam Cassiano, Frank Pritchard, and James Graham are all absolute guns. And I think the Bulldogs are going to be struggling early in the season because of losing those guys. Now, coming in to replace them, they'll have Aidan Tolman, who's going to have to play much longer minutes than what he normally does, but he's quite capable of doing that. And he had a wonderful year last year. He's a massive asset to the coach. He's not that big, but he hits the line hard, and he plays the ball quickly, and he allows the forwards to get on a roll. He's just a fantastic player, and the coach really needs him. They can't afford to lose him at this stage. Young Martin Tapu, we saw him come on and start a couple of games last year. I think he'll probably be the starting prop with Tolman, and I think he's going to have to play extended minutes. I think you'll find that the coach used Josh Jackson in the latter part of last year, and he played in the grand final, started with him. I think he'll start with him again, and I think he'll be the other starting back rower along with Tony Williams. Tony Williams is their big recruit, and had Tony Williams been starting with Frank Pritchard, Sam Cassiano and James Graham, that just would have been an unbelievable forward pack. But I don't think we're going to see that until the second half of the season due to injuries, unfortunately. Greg Eastwood is the other gun forward in the side who represents a lot of size, and he's going to have to play much bigger minutes than what he normally does as well. But Eastwood can play big minutes. We know Tony Williams can play 80 minutes, and we know Aidan Tolman can play big minutes. So the Bulldogs will still have a very, very formidable forward pack. But I just repeat, losing your three best forwards out of the forward pack is a big, big problem. The other big problem that I think the Bulldogs have got, and this is for the entire season, is the fact that while they've got very big forwards with massive skills that got them a long way last year, they are not athletic. It's not an athletic forward pack. And I think teams that want to use them up and work them around and do little grubber kicks and kick over their head, I think they could find them out in defence. One of these young big kids to come in, just like Sam Cassiano did last year, will be the under-20s prop of the year last year, a big guy called Dave Clemmer. He just made 1,000,000 metres last year in the under-20s. He was just too good for him. He would just hit the ball up and they just couldn't put him down. And he is an absolute giant, another 120k guy. And I've got no doubt he'll be coming on much sooner than what the coach would have been hoping for because of injuries. And so he'll be used up. Now, the problem with Dave Clemmer is the same sort of problem that they had with Sam Cassiano. He hits the ball up okay, but he doesn't play the ball very quickly, and he doesn't get back in defence very quickly. And I think you'll find that smart coaches will be running a lot at Dave Clemmer, particularly after he's on for about 10 minutes and after he's just done something physical. I think a lot of smart players, you know, and I'm talking about guys like Cameron Smith, they'll be running at big Dave Clemmer, and I think you'll find that he'll be missing a couple of vital tackles at key areas of the ground. So that's the big red flag. But in all honesty, I don't think the Broncos have got a choice. When you've got injuries to three of your best forwards, you have to take risks with the young guys. Dale Finucane is another guy who went terrific last year, and I'm sure he'll be getting plenty of minutes. He'll come on. There's a big regard for Lloyd Perrott. He's the younger brother of Sam Perrott, and he's in the same category as David Clemmer. Very promising young kid, and will play, I'm sure, with the injuries they've got. He'll come on and play in the forwards. The experienced Dean Hallitoo, the coach will be relying very heavily on him, I would think, to help them out with a lot of the injuries that they've got. Joe Romolo, another guy called Leilani Latu, is a very promising kid that they've got. So there's a lot of depth in the Bulldogs, as you expect that they have. They always have got a lot of good depth. They always go very good in the State League and in the under-20s, and so that will always be coming through. But if we're going to compare round one starting team with what they had in the grand final, it's a fundamentally different side, and the Canterbury Bulldogs are very vulnerable in the early rounds of 2013, and I couldn't be backing them in the winter competition just at this stage. The bookmakers have got them at second favourite behind the Melbourne Storm, and I'm not saying that they can't go all the way, but I am saying that I think they're poor value, and I can't be on them at this stage. As for the coach, Des Hasler, last year he's 27 games, he won 20 of them, and that's a 74% strike rate. It doesn't get much better than that. Unfortunately, he didn't win the big one, and as I said, he won 12 consecutive games with the Bulldogs last year. A fantastic effort. He's a fantastic coach, maybe not the God-given wonderful coach like Bellamy is, but one thing that he is very good at, he's very good at recognising who's very good at things that he's not good at, and building an infrastructure around him. And he's got a wonderful assistance in all levels of the game to help him out scientifically and on the field. And that's what he's very good at, and you've got to take your hat off to that. He knows what he's good at, and he knows what he's not good at, and he's been able to recruit what he's not good at. So consequently, we have a very, very formidable Canterbury Bulldogs team who will once again be one of the teams to beat in the year 2013. I don't want to be on them to win the grand final, but I have no doubt they'll be playing in the semi-finals. Good luck if you follow the Bulldogs.